Welcome back to the Splash Live, Greater West Bloomfield's live daily news and talk show. I'm Tyler Kieft, alongside Diane Chabon. Well, plenty of local history here in the four communities in Greater West Bloomfield, and one organization is centered on organizing that history, maintaining that history, and spreading that history to the next generations ahead. That is the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society, with open house and other events, exhibits, and presentations all throughout the year, including plenty of really cool stuff coming up this fall. Here to join us to talk about these upcoming events, exhibits, and presentations is President Gina Gregory from the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. Gina, thank you for being with us.
You're very welcome, Tyler. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
Good.
Yeah, glad to have you on. There's a lot going on at the Orchard Lake Museum and through the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society all throughout the fall. This is something that hasn't necessarily been something new in the past months or even past year at the Historical Society, but you've expanded your open houses. They used to be once a month. Now they're several times throughout the month, and not just on the weekends, but also some dates during the week as well, available to residents to explore the museum and attend some of these open house events. So speak to us about the expansion of these open houses, how this really came to be, and what those provide to the community.
Sure. We're open on the third Fridays, and then the first, second, fourth, and fifth Sundays, except when we have an event somewhere else that weekend. So we did this when we reopened in fall of 2021. We knew that our museum is something that people say, oh, I'd like to stop by, but you weren't open. So it's pretty hard to plan your life around once a month, but once almost every weekend is certainly more helpful. And also that we were, so we thought that we could man that as a community to have that service available, and also that our museum had enough things in it that were interesting to look at that people would like to see. So that's been proved helpful. It's also been interesting that people now drop off more donations as well. So we have plenty of more donations all the time, which is great. So we run those as well as other, as you said, we have a program monthly, and then a themed open house on the second Sunday monthly too.
Yeah, and one of those that's coming up is on September 14th. That's a Thursday afternoon from 1:30 to 2:30. It's not an open house, it's a tour of the Orchard Lake Museum. But what's great about that particular event is you're not just exploring it as an interested resident, you're exploring that with a docent from the Historical Society that has knowledge of all these different artifacts from across the four communities and surrounding areas in that museum. So speak to that event and why that kind of gives residents a different look at this local history that is available in droves all throughout the year at the Orchard Lake Museum.
Sure. This is the first time we've done this, to partner with the West Bloomfield Parks to provide a docent-led tour through them. We did that thinking that different people would see the program and might be able to take opportunity to use that chance to check out our museum. So we're hopeful that it's successful, and if it is, then we'll repeat it. It's just a different way to do the same thing. So that's good.
Yeah, some of my favorite events with the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society are these presentations that you put on. We have recorded a couple of them in the past. We have one that has gotten great response, the restoring of 2690 Pine Lake Road, that very unique blue roofed house. Some have called it the Smurf House. You had the presentation on that with the Historical Society several months ago. That's available on civiccentertv.com. Another really interesting one coming up in late September, Monday, September 25th, at the West Bloomfield Township Public Library in their meeting room. 7 o'clock event where history and genealogy meet. Professional genealogist Judy Munn will be sharing her perspectives on history, on artifacts, and those genealogical connections between people of these communities, these artifacts, and those living in the present and in the future. Tell us about that presentation and the unique perspective that Judy is going to bring to our community as she presents this at the library.
Well, looking at life through a genealogist perspective is interesting. It may seem boring, but as she says, it's, where history and where the people are. People are more than their their birth, marriage, and death dates. So she goes through that and does a very good job. We had her for our annual meeting and thought that the general public would enjoy hearing her at the library. So we're real pleased and excited to have her with us then. We'll also be having a September open house on the 10th with antique saw collection. And Jerry McManus has a great collection that he's put together over the years and is very knowledgeable about his collection. So stop by then. It'll be outside and with his saw collection.
Yeah, we hear all the time also on another front about in history classes, we've all learned about the Underground Railroad, and it's a really cool story of how enslaved people were able to escape that enslavement in the South and eventually escape to the North in the U.S. or into Canada. And part of that Underground Railroad ran through the Detroit area, but what many people don't know is part of that Detroit area segment of the Underground Railroad actually ran through the greater West Bloomfield community. You're going to be having an event, the Underground Railroad Flight to Freedom Tour and Lunch. That's happening Thursday, October 19th, 10 a.m. to 1:45 p.m. to talk about the experience of the Underground Railroad traveling through the Detroit area, including in our community. Tell us about that event. And another one is that you're partnering with West Bloomfield Parks on for transit, but giving a really unique perspective too on that local piece of history that has huge implications in American history.
Mm-hmm. So we'll be taking advantage of the First Congregational Church of Detroit's program. Certainly they have, well, I think they have real solid evidence that they were involved with that directly. The thing about the Underground Railroad is it was supposed to be secret, so not too much was written down about it. So what happened through here, we feel we know, but to find it in writing, we don't know really. But that's not to say that it didn't happen. But so this program will be to experience their flight to freedom, which is a storytelling reenactment of the passage to freedom, then with lunch after, and then certainly the transportation with that. So we're looking forward to that. I have never been there.
You can find more information on that event at gwbhs.org. And you can also register for it. Registration is going to be required, particularly for transportation through West Bloomfield Parks, wbparks.org. Go over to their events page and scroll over to October 19th. That's a 10 a.m. event on October 19th to get more information and to register for the event as well. And Gina, people love the natural areas of our community all throughout the greater West Bloomfield area, in West Bloomfield and in the Tri-Cities. In fact, people move here for the natural areas and for those recreational areas. So a really fun thing people can experience too, if they haven't already, is go to the Orchard Lake Nature Sanctuary and get a tour from naturalist Carol Fink to the Historical Society. That's happening again in October, Sunday, October 22nd from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Tell us about that and the sort of way that naturalist Carol Fink is able to connect history to nature all in one presentation.
Well, she talks about the history of that property, which is an interesting one. And then as a naturalist, she can also then pivot and share her perspectives that are available that day of what we see with nature and the transition of the seasons and our connections to nature. She does a great job with that. People enjoy it. So it's a good walk in the woods with a guide. And I'll also pivot back to our October open house. We like to feature people's personal collections. So we're having antique saws in September. And then in October, we're going to have a Mrs. Butterworth bottle collection. One of our members has a unique collection of syrup bottles where they're all, she's got a collection of them where each one is different. She's got about 30 of them. They look pretty similar, but there's little differences between them. So it's fun to see that and see why she collected them and what that means to her, and a way for people to connect with each other, neighbor to neighbor.
You can always find more information on Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society events, including their open houses happening on the 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 5th Sundays of every month, as well as the third Friday of every month from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. gwbhs.org. GWBHS.org. Also plenty of more information on how you can help them out, become a member, become a sponsor, or even submit some of your own pieces of local history through their Collecting Memories initiative as well. Gina, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we let you go, any other upcoming programs we should know about?
Well, we have November and December, but I'm going to save those for another day. So check us out.
That
I
is a
think you
great
summed it
idea.
up well. Yeah, thank you.
That is what we call in the business a teaser, and a great one from Gina Gregory. Gina, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tyler. Bye.
Appreciate having the Historical Society on, and always appreciate their great events all throughout the year. I'm telling you, you want to check them out. GWBHS.org is the place to go for all that information that you may need.